All right. Welcome to the Peaceful Solution certification class, everyone. Sorry, I'm a little bit cold. I think my voice is frozen as well. Please have a seat. We left off last time. We talked about, we started chapter 1, More Than Meets the Eye, page 3. And before we go any further tonight, we want to kind of review what we went over last time just to refresh our minds. It's been about 3 days. But on page 3, we went over, what character is. We talked about character. We talked about honor. And we talked about that character, it reflects who we are on the inside, and it goes beyond what the casual eye can see. And in the middle of the page, it talks about knowing about your character is what's going to enable you to understand why you think and act the way you do. And knowing how to identify a positive character in others will help us build strong, positive relationships. So we really need to know, what to look for in somebody, in a person, before we want to choose, whether we want to befriend somebody or not. Now, we also learned that sometimes a person's character can be mistaken for their personality. Remember, personality and character, although they're similar, there's a vast difference between the two. Okay, and it's incumbent upon all of us to learn what the difference is, and it's very important, as we'll find out as we progress through the book. A lot of times people get confused and they think character and personality are the same, but they're very different concepts. But we need both personality and character to function, as we learned last class. And then on page 4, we went over where our character comes from. We talked a little bit about, the things that we believe in, how we treat others. Our character defines what's important to us. And it's an integral part of who we are. That means it's necessary. It's necessary to make us complete. It's vital to us. And we learned about some of the factors that go into our character, like who we are, like genetics, family values, influences, experiences, choices, and the environment we were raised in. All of us come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different homes, even different neighborhoods, different homes. I mean, all these things actually contribute to who we are, okay, today. And, I've had 50 some odd years to become who I am. All of you have, become who you are today. It's taken a while to get there. So it's not like we're going to change overnight, but the things in our environment, the things that we've been taught, the influences that were in our life, all these things are what made us who we are today. Even our heredity, their genetics. As you remember, we talked about genetics as well. And then we also covered that if we don't, if someone's born with the ability to do something, but they're never given the potential, the opportunity to, let's say somebody has, they're born with the ability, the innate ability to play guitar. We use that as an example. If the person's never given a guitar, they would never know that they have it within them to actually play that guitar. So they have to have an opportunity. A person has to have an opportunity, and it's the same thing in building character. We have to be given the opportunity. We have to be given a teacher, the information. Remember, knowledge is power. We have to be given that information, a teacher, an environment where we can learn and grow. And, these things are important into becoming, who we are and developing our character. And our character, remember, it's not like our fixed genetic traits, like our eye color, skin color, hair color, nose, shape. Sometimes I would that was, or the size of our feet or whatever, right? we those are fixed traits we were born with that we can't change. We can only disguise, but we can't change them. But we can change our character, and that's a great thing. We can do it anytime we choose. All right, we can choose to change our character, our behavior, our attitude anytime we desire to do so. Okay, and it's within our power to do that. Okay, so tonight we're going to be covering on page 6, and I'm going to be reading from the third procedure here, that we're going to explain to students. It says that values are principles or qualities that we consider important. We're going to be talking about values. Although values in general are not standardized but varied, that means they're different, based upon what the individual deems important, there are certain values that are internalized by all people. In other words, these are shared values that people from all different walks of life and cultures have within them, or that they deem important. These are called moral values. Now, I want you to understand as we progress, not everyone's moral values are the same. And not everyone's, I like to use air quotes sometimes just to put an emphasis on it, but not everyone's moral idea of what moral is even the same. Okay, and that's why we have to go, remember we talked last class about making sure that our definitions that we're going by in the peaceful solution, that we get them from the peaceful solution. And because you can go to different sources, dictionaries, internet sites or whatever, and look up that word moral, and you'll probably get some different ideas. You might get some that are pretty close and similar, but you always want to make sure you go by the definitions found in the peaceful solution. So these are called moral values, and it says, have students read and discuss the sections entitled Values and Morals. What do they have to do with my character? Found on pages 6 through 9 of their handbooks, and stress that moral values play a key role in the development of a positive character. So that's what we're going to be covering in this class this evening. And I'm really glad everybody made it back to continue on this journey, right? And I hope everyone continues to come. I know it's cold outside, but see, that's all part of character building, right? You got to become like the mailman. Remember, rain or shine, snow or hail, or we need to make sure we fulfill our obligations. Okay, so at the top of page 6, it says the next important factor in helping to develop your character is called values. It says values are what you believe in or feel strongly about, and they also play a key role in developing your character. And the sum total of everything you value becomes your value system. Okay? And I know if I asked everybody here tonight, what do you value? What do you think is important? Okay? Everybody would have some values that we all share. Okay? Some values that we have, we're going to learn there's different types of values. Okay? Not all values are the same per se. But all of us would share similar values, and some of us would have things that we think are important that are different. It says, as you mature and grow, your parents share their values with you, just like their parents shared their values with them. And our parents are our most influential teachers because they're the ones that we grew up with the first few years of our life, and even when we were in our mother's womb, before we were born, our moms talked to us, and many studies have shown about how children can even learn in the womb. They can hear, they can sense things in the womb, and so they're our most influential teachers because they shared their values with us. And most of the things that we think are important now, we got from our parents. Not everything, but a lot of the core things that we believe we got from our parents, the values. The things they care about and consider as important are for the most part the same things we care about. Of course, as we interact with people other than our parents, we're going to adopt other values as well. You know, and I think I talked last class about how, you know, as we age, as we get a little older, a little wiser, more experience, more influences in our life, we go into different environments. We start to adopt new values. You know, there's a lot of things that I enjoy doing today that 40 years ago you wouldn't even get me near. Okay. And then again, there's things that I used to do when I was very young that I'm not doing right now. I don't think they're very important anymore. In fact, I'm not climbing trees anymore. Remember I told you I love to climb trees and I love to go to the highest branch? You won't catch me doing that now. Might be a little, well, I might get stuck up there and have to call the fire department. But yeah, there's different things. As I say, as we get older, we adopt new values, and we even drop and shed some of the values that we had when we were younger. Okay, so, and as we interact with people, you know, different people come across, you know, different influences in our lives, different people that we meet. They share their values with us, and some of them we choose to adopt, and some of them we really don't want anything to do with. We're not interested in them. Now, family members, now, you know, let me give you a little something about value system. Remember, it talked about the sum total of everything you value becomes your value system. Your value system is molded by your virtues or your vices. That means your value system is molded by your moral character, because, you know, if you like doing the right thing in your life, if you might like making right choices, you're going to try not to value things that bring harm to yourself or somebody else. You're not going to value doing things or even possessing things that would bring harm to you or somebody else. And it's molded by your virtues or your moral, your ethical values, or your vices. That means your bad habits, your immoral character. You know, if you have an immoral character, you're going to be valuing certain things that aren't healthy, that aren't safe, that aren't wise to be doing, because they could get you in some kind of trouble, or they could bring harm to you or somebody else. So your value system is going to be molded by those things, but also your experiences and your influences as well. That's where your value system is going to come from. So continuing in the middle of page 6, it says, family members, babysitters, teachers, and others all help shape your character by sharing their values with you. And I don't know about you, but I had a lot of different babysitters. And some of them were family members, you know, like my sisters, sometimes my older brother, but sometimes complete strangers. You know, I remember back when I was growing up in the 60s, pretty much you might put an ad in the paper, or mom might call a neighbor and say, hey, can your daughter come over and babysit, or can somebody come and, you know, they'd look for somebody to come and babysit. And as long as they were willing to, you know, earn $1 an hour to babysit, they'd put you with that person, not even really knowing who this person was and what kind of influences they were going to be sharing with you, right? So I got a lot of different ideas from a lot of babysitters when I was growing up. Some of them were okay. Some of them weren't, you know, quite positive. But we had teachers as well. Remember all your teachers you had growing up? I know in elementary school we usually stayed with the same teacher all throughout, you know, like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. We had the same teacher all day long. But then when we got into middle school, like most of you are in now, you know, now we have, you know, you go from class to class all day. You probably got about 6 or 7 different teachers now. And all of those teachers are having an influence, an impact. You know, they're saying things, they're doing things, they're behaving a certain way in your presence, and it's having an influence, and it's helping to shape who you are. So you need to, we need to be careful also, and that's why we're learning the peaceful solution, so we can know what we don't want to, the negative things that we don't want to take on from those around us. So family members, babysitters, teachers, and others all help shape our character by sharing their values with us. And you see this picture here of these people lined up. You see this boy here with a, I want to show this on the monitor probably for people that don't have a book. This is kind of an interesting picture. It has this young man here and all these different people. You know, some of them might be family members, some of them might be you know, babysitters, teachers, whatever. They're pouring their values in this young man's head, okay? And some of the things that are being poured in his head are, it says one cup here says crafts. Crafts are like skills, trades, professions that we like, or, you know, that people share with us. And either we enjoy them or we don't. Either we're interested in them or we're not interested in them. We don't get involved in them. But they're trades, professions, pastimes, and hobbies. That's what crafts are. And then another person has a cup here that says experiences. And then another person's pouring in some values into this person's head. So you see, all these things are being put into us, and they're helping us become who we are today. It says, for instance, your parents might not like gardening, but your aunt who lives in the country loves to garden. While visiting her for the summer, you began to appreciate and value gardening. How many people here value gardening? Like to garden? Have ever had a garden? Have ever tried to grow a garden? Anybody? Yeah, a lot of people. I know my mom used to spend a lot of time in the garden. She had a lot of different, she had a real small garden, but she had lettuce and radishes and carrots, onions, the basic things. And this was in Alaska when I was growing up. The growing season was very short, but the days were very long, and the vegetables usually got quite large because they had a lot of sunlight. The sun didn't go down till 12 o'clock, midnight. So the days would be very long. Of course, in the winter, they were very short. But my mom, she used to spend a lot of time in the garden. And I liked going out in the garden when I was young, getting in the dirt, getting my hands dirty, feeling the soil. And I would eat those vegetables that Mom was growing right out of the ground. I loved them. Now, well, you won't usually find me in a garden, okay? But that doesn't mean I don't enjoy the soil and enjoy being outdoors. I do. Some of us might just have other things that keep us a little busier, or not able to get out and do those kind of things anymore. But the point is that you might not enjoy doing those things, but somebody comes along in your life and they share those things with you, and you might start liking them. I know a person right now I'm looking at that I don't think he ever even went to a petting zoo, and now he has to deal with cows and goats and sheep and all kinds of animals on a daily basis, you know. And he told me, he said, man, I didn't ever think I'd be doing anything like this. Well, welcome to the real world, right? Okay, so it says there's as many different values or types of values as there are people. So that means there's about, what, 8 billion types? 8 billion people on the planet? It says no two people are alike, not even members of the same family. You know, not even conjoined twins. I remember I saw it was a show, I think it was 60 Minutes or one of these programs, and it had these conjoined twins. You know, that's somebody that shares the same body, but they have two different heads, two different brains, right? They look different. But both of them were talking about all their different likes and dislikes, and neither one of them liked the same thing the other one liked, okay? And even though they were conjoined at the body, they had different brain, they had different character, different personality, okay? And they both had different likes and dislikes, and even different social skills. They were not the same, okay? Even identical twins, you know, they don't don't have the same, they're not the same person. They're not a carbon copy of the other. No two people are alike, not even members of the same family. Based upon experiences and interactions, we come to value different things. For example, some people value a college education, some a trade or career. Others value staying at home and raising a family. Some value sports, while others value art. That reminds me of something. I got something I need. I'm gonna give you a. I'm gonna see how much value you put on certain things. Okay? I want to show you how all of us have different values, and all of us can look at certain things and think. Some of us can look at something and think, man, that's worth a lot. That's really beautiful. Or, man, I'm willing to pay millions of dollars for that thing. While others would look at it and go, that's not even worth 10 cents at a garage sale. Right? Well, let's find out. How much would you pay? Go ahead and zoom in on that a little bit. How much would you pay? How much would you be willing to pay for this painting right here? I got any bidders? This is an actual painting. It's a blue. It's very beautiful. The color, the tone of that blue there, with a line down the center of it. But that's the painting. Now let me start with the highest bidder. Do I hear $1? Do I hear $1,000? Do I hear $20 million? Be careful. I'm going to take you up. If you bid that, we're going to be looking for you. How about 40 million? Can I get 40 million? Can I get 43.8 million? Because that's what somebody paid for that. Yeah, like P.T. Barnum said. Well, it's values. Everybody values different things, right? Okay, that's one painting. How about this one right here? This is a little more colorful. How about that one right there? Do I hear 100 million? Do I hear 200 million? 300 million? Well, that's what it was sold for. Sold for $300 million in 2015. William de Kooning's painting called Interchanged. $300 million. Somebody paid for that right there. You see that? You see how values are different? Even things that we look at, and we put what's called aesthetic value on it. Aesthetic means we can look at something or we feel something with our fingers and we think, well, that's something nice. That's something important. How about this one right here? This is John Pollock, number 5, it says. It's pretty colorful. Lots of lines and things, right? $140 million? Somebody paid for that? Let me show you one more. This is the Van Gogh. Okay, you've heard of Vincent Van Gogh, right? Great artist that everybody puts a lot of stock in. I just don't know that I would pay, what is it? Yeah. I don't know that I would pay, let's see how much this one was. I don't think I have that much money. Somebody paid $40 million for this vase of sunflowers. $40 million in 1987. Here's one final one. This is Paul Cézanne's The Card Players. Would you believe that somebody paid $250 million for that in 2012? $250 million. And actually, it was in Qatar. I think it was an Arab country, Qatar. Somebody paid $250 million because they figured if they paid $250 million, people would start to value their country as an art-loving country. So they tried to put their country on the on the list of great places to sell artwork, I guess, and somebody paid $250 million for that painting. So it's really incredible. You know, not everyone has the same values. Obviously, any of those paintings I wouldn't think would be more than $50 or $100. At least I wouldn't be willing to pay that much. Okay, so we come to value different things based on experiences and interactions. For example, some people value college education, some trades or careers. Others value staying at home and raising a family. Some value sports, while others value art, as we just saw. What we value can also be affected by our culture and religion. In some cultures, there's value placed upon female modesty. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because that word modesty, again, is another word that might throw us off. Modesty just meaning, you know, decency, or, you know, proper way to dress. Let me show you how let me give you an example of how some women, it's female modesty, what female modesty is to some cultures. This is like Islamic Muslim dress right here. And it's not, you notice they have the head scarves on and things, and they have loose fitting clothing. But let me show you what the requirements are for the other requirements. The first requirement, it says the parts of their body need to be covered, okay? And it says the second requirement is it has to be loose clothing, has to be loose fitting. The third requirement is the thickness of the clothing. It can't be, you know, thin clothing, see-through type clothing. It has to be thick enough to where you can't see through it. Fourth requirement says the overall appearance has to look modest in itself, okay? In other words, they don't want, you know, if the women wear something flashy, that's going to make someone want to look at them. So they don't want to draw attention to themselves. That's the whole purpose behind the modest dress. And then the fifth requirement says not imitating other faiths. This is the Islamic Muslim dress code. And the sixth requirement is decent but not flashy. Okay, decent but not flashy. And it says beyond the clothing, it says behaviors and manners. Islamic clothing is only one aspect of modesty. It's only one aspect of it. It says, more importantly, one must be modest in behavior, manners, speech, and appearance in public. The dress is only one aspect of a total person, and one that merely reflects what is present on the inside of a person's heart. Okay, so you can see some cultures take, you know, the dress, this modest dress, very seriously. And I also have a picture of a Western dress, Western culture type modest clothing here. Zoom in just a little bit. Right here. This would be considered modest dress. Okay, and I'm sure there's many other examples. So some cultures, they place a lot of value on that, on the dress, okay, on female modesty. And, you know, they place a lot of value on it here too, because I've been in stores where it tells you that if you don't have any shoes, or you don't have a shirt, or you don't have, you know, you're not dressed properly, you're not going to get any service. And that's male and female, okay? So it's not that here in America or this culture we don't value modest dress. We do in many instances. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of schools we go to out here that we teach at the Peaceful Solution, that they have dress codes, and the dress is you have to have uniform dress, and they have to be proper. It has to be proper clothing. Okay, in other words, it says female modesty. In other words, women choose to dress in garments that do not show their form, as we just saw, those loose-fitting clothing. While in other cultures there's value placed, and let me say one other thing about the clothing aspect, because I used to live in Houston for a period of time, Houston, Texas. I think it's the fourth largest city in America. And I lived in an area close to what it was called the Gulfton Ghetto, okay? And just a little bit south of the Gulfton Ghetto, these are neighborhoods, okay? Just a little bit south of the Gulfton Ghetto was the Muslim section of town. And there was a big mosque, and there was all kinds of, you would see the Muslim peoples, walking up and down the street with this kind of dress I just showed you. And I noticed something about those areas of town when I would go into them. I noticed in the Muslim section of town, I didn't see guys driving by when there'd be large groups of girls, walking down the street together, talking. But I never saw one time a man or a group of men or anything honking at them or wolf whistling at them like, I can't whistle, or whatever they do. I never heard any of that. I never saw any of that. I never saw anyone showing them any form of disrespect at all. Not in that way. But then when I would go into the Gulfton Ghetto, man, there was people cruising up and down the street, honking at the girls. And the girls weren't dressed like the girls in this section. The girls were dressed in very immodest clothing. And there was a lot of guys that were trying to hit on them and trying to get them in their car. And just very much disrespecting them in many, many ways. Calling them names, making comments about, body parts and so on and so forth. So, there's a lot to be said about dress. Dress has always been a sign of, character in, whether positive or negative in society. So in other words, women choose to dress in garments that don't show their form, while in other cultures there's value placed on objects of art and physical beauty. I know in where I lived down in South Texas for a period of time, a lot of emphasis was put on physical beauty. In fact, right when you drove into town there in Laredo, Texas, you would see a big poster, Miss Laredo, and it'd have some beauty queen there on the poster. A lot of emphasis was put on female, how a person looked, okay? Physical beauty, big emphasis. Now, if you live in an environment with a lot of crime, your safety and the safety of your family is going to become an important value. I'm not an advocate of carrying guns and knives and any kind of weapons. I've never had to do that, thankfully. I've never felt the need to do that. But I can understand in some parts of town, in certain cities, in certain places, why people feel like they have to do that aren't being taught the peaceful solution. Okay? So I don't judge them for it. I understand that why they feel that way. But, if you live in a neighborhood where there's a lot of gang activity, there's a lot of drug dealing going on, there's a lot of drive-by shootings, there's robberies, your physical safety is in danger. This is reality right now. If you haven't noticed on the news, there's a lot of rioting going on. There's people going into neighborhoods, setting fires, and there's people challenging people and threatening people and things. So in certain society or in certain environments where there's a lot of crime, you're going to be concerned about those kind of things. Okay, where if you live in other parts of the country or parts of a city where there's no crime, it's not going to be something that's that's going to be on your mind. It's not going to be something that you value as much. Okay, but we need to understand that everybody has different values. Like when we were looking at that art, we got to consider one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? We have to respect everybody's different values. So if you live in an environment with a lot of crime, your safety and the safety of your family is going to be an important value. Even though there's many different factors affecting what we value, we can be sure that all of these things are helping to shape our character. All the values are helping to shape who we are today. Okay, and remember, these values are coming from things that we adopt along the way, but they can be values that are being shared by family members, babysitters, teachers, and other influences in our lives. Preachers, the media. Media is big, the radio, the television, the internet. These have a huge impact on what we think is important. In fact, if you watch the evening news, they'll try to make you think certain things are important. When you watch commercials, on television, they're going to try to make you think that certain items are important for you to have. They're trying to convince you that this is something that you need, that this is something that you need to think is important. So you're constantly being bombarded with these influences that are trying to shape what you value. So we need to always be aware that they're there, but we also need to be aware we don't want to take on any kind of value system that's molded by vices. We're molded by bad habits. Okay, we want to shape and mold our character based on solid moral values. And it says, chew on this, value what's positive in yourself and others. That's what we need to value. What's positive? I like to think of the word positive and negative. When I hear the word positive, I always think of a plus sign. In other words, if it's positive, it's going to add something to my life, to my betterment, to my positive character, to my attitude, to my positive attitude. Where if it's negative, remember the negative sign is that minus sign, which means it's going to take away. It's going to take something away from the building of a positive character. Okay, and that's not what we want. We want to value what's positive in everyone and ourselves. So let's turn over now to page 8. And now that we've covered about values, let's talk a little bit about morals. Let's talk about morals and what they have to do with my character. Before I start reading here, I just want to mention that, morals concern the principles of right and wrong behavior, okay? And as you see here, you see this this box here, and it has the right and the line through it, and it says wrong. It's concerning principles of right and wrong behavior and what's considered positive and negative behavior. And as you know, you can see there's a line, okay? And there's no middle road when it comes to morals, okay? Something is going to either be right or it's going to be wrong, okay? We're going to learn more about that as we progress, but we never want to think that, if something's wrong, if something's negative, it's never going to be right for us to do. Okay, so we're going to have to learn the difference between right and wrong, and that's what the peaceful solution teaches us. It gives us a very clear picture of what it is as we progress here. So it says, morals, what do they have to do with my character? It says, regardless of culture, religion, or environment, there are some values that all people share. They are called moral values. Now, a moral value is like a line that divides right behavior or wrong behavior from right behavior. Now, it doesn't say it right here. I'm just going to kind of drop this in your ear right now. But how would we know, because I think most of us, we probably think we know the difference between right and wrong, right? Well, I always thought I knew the difference between right and wrong when I was, 20, 30 years old. I always thought I knew the difference. But I've learned over the years that I really didn't know, in many cases, the difference between right and wrong. Because a lot of times, some of these words that you're going to be learning in the peaceful solution, like some of the positive character traits, like honest, for instance, or respect, or loyalty, they're used today very freely by people. And they were used very freely by myself when I was growing up. In fact, I thought I was pretty honest for the most part. I mean, if I sold you drugs when I was a drug dealer, I made sure that I didn't dirty deal you, man. You got what you paid for. I was an honest drug dealer, I was also an honest thief, because if I stole out of somebody's house, Me and my partner would split it 50-50. I wouldn't take anything from him. I wouldn't steal a thing from him. So I considered myself pretty honest. I also considered myself to be pretty loyal. If I joined a gang and they asked me to do something, some kind of dirty deed to hurt somebody, I would do it, and I would do what they asked me to do. That was pretty loyal, right? Well, see, this is why we have to be careful. One of the young children said, "No." Well, you're right. That's correct. No, it's not okay. But that's what we grew up thinking, because we heard these words being thrown around a lot, but we really didn't know what they meant. Okay, because we weren't taught the peaceful solution. And sometimes people take positive words and they can twist them and turn them around into something they were never meant to be. Okay, even like the word moral, as we're going to learn. You can make something moral that's totally immoral, just by what you teach about that thing. So a moral value is like a line that divides right behavior from wrong behavior. I was going to say something about the word right. If it's right, as we're going to learn in the peaceful solution, if something is right, it's not going to bring any kind of harm to us. To us, our neighbors, the environment, property, anything, any living thing at all. It's not going to bring any kind of harm to anybody if it's right. Okay? But again, that's not enough. You got to learn even more about, what would bring harm? What does bring harm? That's where education is going to come in the peaceful solution, because even though we might know what I just told you, we still have to learn, what kind of actions could I take that would be wrong or that could bring harm? What kind of things might I say that could bring harm, etc. Okay, so people from all walks of life, young or old, big or small, rich or poor, share some of the same basic concepts of moral values. In other words, people from all over the world, we all have certain values that, moral values. Like, for instance, can you go to any country on earth right now and go to a store in that country and walk out with something without paying for it? No, because stealing is a moral value or a moral principle that's taught in all countries and everybody follows. Everybody believes that we shouldn't steal. Now, some countries have different penalties for stealing, right? Not all countries do things or come up with penalties for stealing that are the same. Sometimes we steal and we can go to prison. Sometimes we steal, we might get a fine. Some countries you can steal and get your hands cut off. Some countries you can sell drugs and get your heads cut off. Okay, so different countries have different ways of dealing with these things, but they do all share certain moral values. Like not stealing, not lying, not cheating, not taking advantage of each other, etc. Okay, so now morality, it says, is divided into three basic categories. Behavior and attitude toward all life, that's human, animal, and plant. Behavior and attitude toward possessions and property. And behavior and attitude toward the environment. Now that word attitude, we should know what behavior means. Behavior is just actions or conduct. Actions or conduct that we take, that toward others or even ourselves, or our mannerisms. Okay, that's what behavior is. It's our actions or conduct toward others or our own self. And attitude, when it says attitude, it means it's a way of thinking or feeling about someone or something. Our attitude is how we think or feel about someone or something. Okay? So morality is divided into those three basic categories: behavior and attitude toward all life, human, animal, and plant, behavior and attitude toward possessions and property, and behavior and attitude toward the environment. It says moral principles in regard to human life means acknowledging and accepting that life is valuable and that all people have the potential to contribute to society. You need to underline that word all. all, all people. And that means regardless of gender, culture, religion, shoe size, just doesn't matter. All people, whether they have one arm or two arms or no arms, one leg, two legs or no legs, everybody can contribute in some way. Everybody's valuable. And you know why they're valuable? Because they're a human being. They're a human being. There's nobody on this earth that's better than anybody else. None of us can say that anyone is less than anyone else. Everybody's valuable. Everybody has a part that they can share. You know, think of the world as a big engine. You know, think if everyone was working together like an engine should. You know, all the parts are doing what they're supposed to do. Man, we'd have a pretty smooth machine, wouldn't we? Okay, but everybody has a part, and not all parts of the engine can be the carburetor. You know, and all parts could be, the tailpipe, or what. Well, engines don't have tailpipes, but cars have tailpipes. But you know what I'm saying. An engine has different parts. Some parts are very small, some parts are very large, but they all play a part. And we can't say, I've heard of planes crashing because something went wrong with a $5 item. Okay? Yeah, sure, an engine can blow up and the plane can go down, but it could also blow a fuse and can cause something else to malfunction, and they can end up crashing. So whether it's a big part or a small part, it can cause something to fail, or it can cause something to work properly, right? So we can't look at people like they're not important just because they don't have the same physical abilities we do, the same skin color, the same eye color, they didn't come from the same neighborhood or whatever else it is. Everybody has value. We need to acknowledge that. When you have a moral attitude toward others, you accept and appreciate they have the right to live in peace, safety, and security. Now, you can demonstrate a moral attitude by being respectful toward all people. And again, there's another word right there, respectful, we'll be covering as we journey through this book. A lot of people have different ideas about what respectful is, but in the peaceful solution, it's showing care and concern for people. It's treating people with kindness and consideration, showing them care and concern. So it says, this means not taking advantage of others. I want you to write a word over that word advantage, taking advantage. I want you to write this word, exploiter. 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 An exploiter is a user, like someone who uses people. Okay? So we don't want to be an exploiter of others or a user of people, meaning a user of somebody, using them and throwing them away, so to speak. We should be willing to help someone whether they can help us in return or not. Regardless of what they can do for us, right? We should be willing to do for them. It doesn't matter what they can do in return. I remember, speaking of taking advantage of others, because, people take advantage of the elderly. Some people take advantage of children. I'll give you an example. Like if a store clerk had a 7-year-old boy, and the 7-year-old boy came to buy some candy, and he pulled out a $100 bill, and he gives it to the clerk for the candy, and he says, "Here," and he walks off. Would you take that $100 bill and let that little boy go without his change? Well, some people would. That would be taking advantage of that young person's lack of knowledge about how much money he just gave you, right? A person with moral values would say, "Hey, little boy, you forgot your change," and you would give him the change, right? He wouldn't take advantage of that young man's lack of knowledge. Now, I knew another group of people, not that I knew them personally, but I read about it. There was people following Where I used to live down in South Texas, there's a lot of older people enjoy their what they call their sunset years by driving around in motorhomes and visiting different places. And they used to go down there to go bird watching down in the Rio Grande Valley. Some folks like to watch birds. Again, values, right? I really don't like to sit there and watch birds too much myself, but I do watch birds sometimes. Sometimes I will sit and watch a bird and think, wow, and watch some of their things they do and think, wow, that's pretty neat. But I don't have all day to sit there and watch birds. Some people do. Okay, so some people get into motorhomes and they drive around, they go bird watching, right? Okay. Well, there was some guys following these people. You know, they would see these older folks driving in their motorhome, and they would follow them to, you know, say a gas station, and they would pull in the gas station where these folks went to get gas or get food or whatever they're going to do. And while they were parked, somebody would go underneath the motorhome and they would do something to mess up something underneath, like maybe pull the oil plug or, you know, something, you know, to cause the oil to drip out or something, so that after this motorhome started going down the road a few miles, it was going to break down. Okay. And what they would do is they would wait for that motorhome to break down, and, you know, because they caused damage to it. And then they would come to the person, you know, after they pulled over to the side of the road, and they'd say, hey, I can help you, you know, and they would say, hey, I'm a mechanic or whatever, you know, and then they already caused the problem, so they knew how to fix it, right? So they would say, well, it's probably going to cost you a few $100s, right, to do this job. You know, I'm going to have to replace this or that. And they would charge these elderly people a lot of money to get it fixed. That's taking advantage of somebody, okay? That's an example of taking advantage of others. That's an extreme example, but there are other examples too. It's something that we don't want to do in the peaceful solution, or to become a moral person, a person with moral values. We don't want to take advantage of anyone, but show them care and concern. It says an immoral attitude toward life consists of behavior that devalues, belittles, hurts, and takes from others both emotionally and physically. Behaviors that include name-calling, teasing, bullying, and discriminating cause others to feel inferior and disregard their worth as human beings. Again, it's you know, making someone feel inferior means making them feel less than or beneath someone else, so to speak, or makes them to feel like they're not important at all, that they have no value. Okay? Discriminating. Okay, I'm sure we've all heard that word discriminating. I'm going to give you a definition of discrimination. And this comes from another unit of the peaceful solution that we're going to cover later. But it's treatment or consideration based on class or category rather than an individual's merits or an individual's merits. It's kind of like Martin Luther King once said, it'll be a great day in America when people are judged for the content of their character instead of the color of their skin. Okay? We shouldn't be looking at people, their outward appearance, and making judgments or, you know, or making some kind of decision without getting to know people, you know, getting to know what they're really like, and not making what they call generalizations about people. I've heard a lot of generalizations about different groups. You know, like, let's see, all white people want to rule the world. I'm sorry, I'm not one of them, okay? Let's see, what's some other generalizations? I'm sure you've heard many of them, right? When I was growing up, I heard, let's see, watch out for your hubcaps. Black people will steal them. All Mexicans are lazy. Let's see, I'm sure you've heard a million of them, right? And not one of them's true. I've never had my hubcap stolen. Okay, and I've lived in parts of town where there was lots of people that were of darker skin. Never had my hubcaps taken. I've never met a lazy Mexican. I mean, I lived down in South Texas where there's some pretty hard-working people. So I don't know where that person met the person they were talking about, but I've never met any that were lazy. In fact, I see them out there working in the hot sun, sweating, building roads and building buildings and things, and they're all got a smile on their face. I'm not sure where this is coming from. But somebody put that rumor out there, you know, they spread that around. And then next thing you know, other people are like, yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, I heard that too. You know, and then there's telling somebody else, and they never even met anybody that's white, or met anybody that's black, or met anybody that's Chinese or Japanese or whatever culture they're from, right? So discriminating. You know, I remember a commercial where a guy calls to rent an apartment, and the person on the other end of the line could tell that they were a black person by the way they were talking. And they're like, oh, no, we're sorry, that place has already been sold. Sorry, click. So the person calls them back. The same person calls back and puts somebody else on the line that's white and asks about that apartment. And they're like, oh, yes, we still have it available. Okay, well, that's called discrimination, okay? That's an example of discriminating. And we shouldn't be discriminating based on anybody's, you know, appearance, where they're from, what we've heard. We need to get to know people. We need to get we need to get the facts about everyone, and we need to not disregard their worth as human beings. It says physically hurting others includes being aggressive and violent toward them. It also consists of behaviors such as, okay, it says it also consists of behaviors such as violating, as in rape, killing, kidnapping, or murdering, okay? You know, and this being aggressive, you know, physically hurting others includes being aggressive. You know, aggressive doesn't mean just physically aggressive. You know, we can be aggressive in other ways too, right? What about the way we look at somebody or the way we speak to them? That could be aggressive, okay? So it's not just, you know, slapping somebody or hitting someone or pushing somebody. That's not the only forms of aggression. There's many forms of aggression that we don't want to take part in. It says, those who have an immoral attitude toward human life often direct acts of cruelty toward those who are weaker or unable to defend themselves, as in the case of the abuse towards children or the elderly. We have in the Peaceful Solution, we're working with hundreds of children and families right now that are suffering from these kind of things in the homes. It says, every year, countless children are physically, emotionally, and sexually abused. This abuse results in lifelong emotional scars, permanent physical injuries, and in some cases, death. Abuse toward the elderly also involves physical, emotional, and sexual abuse as well. And I can attest, I've seen things on the news. In fact, I saw a story about somebody that was going around in a nursing home taking advantage of older women that were senile, like it shows here. They were senile, meaning that they were infirm or they had a decline in their brain. They were unclear in their mind. They had Alzheimer's or some kind of mind disease, and they couldn't yell out for help or anything. And people were taking advantage of them. They were molesting them. It's horrible to think of something that could take place like that, but these things do take place in a society where not everyone is taught to value a positive character, or to you know, and it's because of the lack of education, right? And aren't you glad you're learning the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program today? Well, I better say, aren't you glad you were learning the Peaceful Solution? Because my time is up, and it's been a quick hour. I don't know, where'd the time go? Wow. Well, it's been a great class, and I want to remind you the next class, write this down. It's on 12/2/2020. It's on Wednesday, 12/2/2020 at 5:30 p.m. Please be here. Continue coming. There's some great lessons coming up, and I thank you again, and I hope everyone has a great night. Stay warm. Thank you.